tonight we have a wonderful lecture for you. Dr. Gary Small is always a lecturer that brings a lot of people, so I'm thrilled to have you all here tonight. Dr. Gary Small is a professor of psychiatry and biobehavioral sciences and the Parlo Solomon Professor on Aging at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, director of the UCLA Longevity Center, and director of the Geriatric Psychiatry Division at the Semel Institute for Neuroscience and Human Behavior. Dr. Small's team has developed brain imaging technologies that detect the first signs of brain aging and Alzheimer's disease years before patients show symptoms. His discoveries have made headlines in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and he frequently appears on the Today Show. He has newest book called the Alzheimer Prevention Program, where he shares the latest scientific evidence on Alzheimer's prevention and a daily lifestyle strategy designed to delay the onset of Alzheimer's symptoms so people can keep their brains healthy through the rest of their lives. And that's what he plans to speak on tonight. So please welcome Dr. Gary Small.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I want to thank my mother for writing it. She's very kind to me. And I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening to hear what I have to say. I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you heard about this lecture through the university, on email, and so forth? Okay. How many of you heard about it on the radio yesterday? Okay. How many of you can't remember where you heard of it? Okay. So we either have one person with a sense of humor or who's very honest. Very good. Now you think you've got problems. I'm supposed to be a memory expert. I mean, it's daunting. And we're going to talk about some of these mild age-related memory complaints that are annoying. And we'll talk about it when they become worse than annoying, when they really interfere with our lives, and how do we know the difference and so forth, and what we can do about it. So I'm going to move on to the first slide and acknowledge some of the wonderful support we've had for the research I'm going to be showing you, and also thank some of my many colleagues who have helped me out, also acknowledge some potential conflicts of interest, and move right on to the first point I wanted to make about healthy aging. I direct the UCLA Longevity Center, and we think about this a lot, how we can live better longer. And when we talk about Alzheimer's prevention and brain health, the topic of successful aging often comes up, and it's quite interesting. And you might have heard about clusters of centenarians, people who live to 100 or more, and how there are areas of the world where they seem to be clustering. And I have on this slide just a few examples of them. Sardinia, Italy, Loma Linda, California, not far from here, and another one, Okinawa, Japan. And if you look at these different areas, it's quite interesting. The people share some traits, some lifestyle traits. They tend to be physically active. They're working in the fields. They also have very strong social networks. They tend to sit around, sip their cappuccino, drink a glass of wine, and talk about things. And they also have diets that are rich in antioxidant fruits and vegetables, whole grains, healthy proteins. The kind of diet we know is a heart-healthy diet, but it turns out it's also a brain-healthy diet. Now, this doesn't prove that if you get up and decide to move to Sardinia, Italy, that you're going to live to be 100. But it is a clue that maybe there's a connection here. Now, it's possible also these people have very good genes. There have been some scientists, particularly at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, that have been looking at families that live a very long time, and they've found some longevity genes. And there's, in most of these studies, usually there's a genetic and environmental interaction. But there are other examples of extreme longevity, healthy brain longevity. If you can still subtract, you can figure out that Madame Calment lived to be 122. And she did not have Alzheimer's disease when she died. She had a healthy brain. And she, too, was physically active. She drove her bicycle around town. She lived in the south of France. Anybody here has visited the south of France? And so you know the Mediterranean diet, lots of fish and with its omega-3 fats and fruits and vegetables, and a little bit of wine. It's good for your heart. It's also good for your brain. And she was mentally active, too. In fact, she was an astute businesswoman. At the age of, so she lived to be 122. At the age of 94, she sold her apartment to a French businessman who agreed to pay her rent for the rest of her life. The real punchline is that the businessman died 10 years later. So you've all heard of the Ponzi scheme. I call this the Calment scheme of successful aging. Now, we're going to be talking about Alzheimer's and what we can do to hopefully stave off the symptoms. But the flip side of Alzheimer's is brain health. And many people equate brain health with having a strong memory. But as this slide shows, brain health is not just about memory. Now, clearly, memory is important. It defines who we are. Without our memory, we have no past. We cannot plan for the future. And we can't enjoy the present. But if you think about it, brain health also involves paying attention. If you can't focus your attention, you can't remember anything. And it involves thinking and reasoning, putting things together. And that depends on attention and memory. And mood. If you're anxious or depressed, you can't focus your attention. You can't think clearly, and you can't remember things. And of course, you have to learn to relax. And physical activity depends on our brain health. If I didn't have my brain health, I wouldn't be here lecturing to you today. I wouldn't be able to talk. I wouldn't be able to move my arms. And what's interesting is we need our brain health to make the right decisions about lifestyle, about diet, about exercise, the kinds of things we need to do to maintain our brain health. So it's sort of a cycle. If you've got your brain health, then you're going to do the right things to maintain it. Now, if you get a chance to take a look at my book, the Alzheimer's Prevention Program, and we were hoping to have books here, but I think somebody forgot. So they obviously didn't read the books. But we'll figure out a way. I mean, there are ways to get books even if you're not here. And I'll direct you to places. Maybe they'll get some books here. That would be nice. But in the book, I talk about inflammation and brain health. And that's kind of a theme. We all know about inflammation being a normal physiological process. If you sprain your ankle or your wrist, or if you have an infection, your inflammatory system deals with it. Those inflammatory cells will repair the damaged tissue. They will fight off the foreign body. And that's a good thing. You may feel some pain, you may have some redness on the joint, but that means your body is healing. One of the problems we see with brain aging, and actually a lot of age-related illnesses, is that the inflammatory system kind of gets into high gear. We have too much inflammation for our own good. And in fact, if you look at an Alzheimer brain, you can see evidence of inflammation. The amyloid plaques I'm going to be talking about. There's, if you're a physician, you'll know about activated microglia or complement. You see that in the amyloid plaque. And I'll show you some of the studies we've done where we've actually used anti-inflammatory drugs to help with memory. And a lot of the strategies in the Alzheimer's prevention lifestyle are anti-inflammatory strategies. Getting a good night's sleep, eating omega-3 fats from fish or nuts or flaxseed, or physical exercise. These are anti-inflammatory strategies. I know when I've had a brisk swim or a jog or ridden the bicycle, I've gotten my heart pumping, I've had a good cardiovascular workout, I have less joint pain. I feel better. My mood is elevated for other reasons. But this is all your inflammatory system coming into play. Now, it's great to see such a large crowd tonight, and I appreciate your attendance. And I know that part of the reason is that Alzheimer's is on our mind. We hear about it every day. I get Google alerts and all kinds of news articles. There's all kinds of things going on. There's new research that's happening all the time. And frankly, it's confusing. And as a scientist and a physician, it's confusing to me, and I know for the public it's confusing. One day we're saying take vitamin E. The next day we say don't take vitamin E. And this was in part what motivated us to write this book, to try to take this science and put it in perspective so people could understand it, and take it one step further, to create a practical program where people can get themselves started. In fact, in the book we have a one-week jumpstart program where we suggest what people ought to eat. We give them exercises, mental and physical exercises, that build up over the week. And there are assessment tools so they can see their progress. And we think this is important because it's important to get started. If this is a topic that celebrities have taken on, Maria Shriver has crusaded against it because it's affected her family. We have lots of people telling us about their diagnosis, musicians, actors, and of course Ronald Reagan put his face on the disease. One reason many people are declaring their diagnosis and they don't seem to be confused is that we're better at diagnosing it earlier. That's good, but the problem is we need more effective treatments. Another reason we're hearing so much about it is that we're living longer, thanks to medical technology, in part. If you were born at the turn of 1900, the turn of the last century, you'd be lucky if you lived to be 50. If you're born today, you're going to live to be 80. Age is the single greatest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's disease. By age 65 or older, the risk is 10%. By age 85 or older, it can be as high as 40 or 50%, depending on the study. So this is a big problem. We know we have 80 million baby boomers who just a year ago started turning age 65 when they're concerned about what they can do. Every 70 seconds, another American